long time ago, on my home planet of Gallifrey, there lived a stellar engineer called Omega.
Stellar? As in stars? You mean he engineered stars?
Ace!
Oh, sorry. Go on.
It was Omega who created the supernova that was the initial power source for Gallifreyan time travel experiments. He left behind him the basis on which Rassilon founded Time Lord Society. And he left behind the Hand of Omega.
His hand? What good was that?
No, not his hand, literally. No, it's called that because Time Lords have an infinite capacity for pretension.
I've noticed that.
The Hand of Omega is a mythical name for Omega's remote stellar manipulator, a device used to customize stars with. And didn't we have trouble with the prototype?
We?
They.
And the Daleks want it so they can recreate the time travel experiments? But you said that both Dalek factions can already travel in time.
Oh yes, Daleks have got time corridor technology, but it's very crude and nasty. And what they want is the power that Time Lords have. And they'll get that with the Hand of Omega. Or so they think.
And you have to try and stop them.
No, wait, I want them to have it.
Eh?
My problem is trying to stop Group Captain Gilmore and his men getting diced in the crossfire.
So, all this is...
It's a massive deception, yes.
This episode is late by 7 whole days. This episode is late by 7 whole days, and I'd like to blame anyone but me. I'd like to blame anyone but me, cause this episode is late by 7 whole days, and it's not my fault this time. I didn't think of lyrics before I started playing. I thought I started playing, and I think of them as I went. And I'm trying to work in toxic gossip train into this song, but make it a TARDIS, and the lyrics aren't coming to me, so I'm just kind of talking at the minute. Give me a second. Hang on, here we go. This episode's late by 7 whole days, and this time it's not my fault, so hop aboard the TARDIS gossip train. I guess that kind of works. Is this even still a relevant meme? There we go, that's the song.
Yeah, this intro is going to age like milk in like a year from now. Because the meme is still
already like fucking.
The meme is
like
still relevant.
Like, yeah. My mind, usually I'm pretty good at coming up with lyrics on the fly, and I feel like the song started well and then quickly fucking crashed into a train. A toxic gossip train crashed into that song and fucked it completely. Well, yeah, the episode's late, sorry. Anyway, welcome to Who Watches Who, a Doctor Who podcast with me, Matthew, and as always, I am joined with...
Hello, I'm Scott.
And this week we are concluding our look into Remembrance of the Daleks and concluding our look into Classic Who for the year, which is wild, absolutely wild, because it feels like Classic Who has just completely absorbed this podcast. For the benefit, I would say, actually, because like our numbers have been really good this year, and we've only really covered Classic Who. So, maybe Classic Who's more
when
popular.
this episode comes out, our last episode will be at 400 views. I reckon it's insane
insane.
High of a number we have.
Yeah. And it's going to be really funny because I really doubt that this episode's going to get the same algorithmic push the first episode got.
We'll see.
I like to hedge my bets on disappointment because then I'm always pleasantly surprised. So if this gets more than 3 views, then I'll be happy. Really low. But yes, no, we are looking at parts 3 and 4 of Remembrance of the Daleks. If you didn't listen to parts 1 and 2, you had 2 whole weeks. What the fuck was wrong with you? Go back and listen to parts 1 and 2 before we start parts 3 and 4. That song put me in a weird mood. Let's jump straight into part 3 unless you've got something to say.
Yeah, before we jump into part 3 of Remembrance of the Daleks, we have a little writer's corner or director's corner this week. Our director is Andrew Morgan. And this is another classic Doctor Who director who started off wanting to act. Like, if you follow most of the classic Doctor Who directors, they all wanted to act for some reason, and they just wound up being a director instead. It's kind of interesting. He got into the RADA, which is the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts, where he did 2 years. One of his classmates was Anthony Ainley, who was the Master in the 80s, who we haven't actually covered yet on this show. And he was
we've never. We've only...
Yeah, go
Master-wise, we've only covered the first one, haven't we? We've not seen any other classic.
We've done the first one. We've done the... what's his name? Roberts. You know who I'm talking about. Roberts. What's his first name?
Eric Roberts.
Yes, Eric Roberts, and we've also done John Sims. So 3.
Yeah, I was speaking specifically classic Who, Doctor Who, not the movie or the fucking new Who.
Okay, fair. And he was just arriving. He just arrived to the class as John Hurt was leaving. So he was classmates with a master, and he just arrived as a doctor at start. Ev was leaving, so it's kind of wild. He thought the only success he could have as an actor is through character parts, but he didn't want to wait till he was 40 to earn any money, so he decided to get into some behind-the-scenes work instead. He met his wife in 1967 and wound up moving to London and working on the BBC as an assistant floor manager. He then did the famous BBC Directors course, which pretty much obviously all of classic Doctor Who directors did. I wonder if it's still part of the BBC to do a director's course.
I was about to say, I don't know if that's even a thing the BBC still do, but I feel like they should bring it back because, like, getting into the industry is like 15 times harder, or if not like 1,000 times harder than it even was back then, you know?
Yeah.
And opening up a course like that could be a really good way of getting in fresh new talent.
Yeah, but, the BBC is just so tight on money these days, famously.
Who isn't?
His first gig as director was to direct an episode of Sutherland Law in 1975, which I've never heard of, which turned out to be a difficult experience because the lead actress on that show had a heart attack on that day when he was recording, so nightmare.
Yeah, that's not good.
So he wound up finding consistent work throughout the decades and worked on things like Blake 7, which we talk about a lot in this show. We need to do an episode on Blake 7.
Back. That's what we say every time we say Blake. Every time Blake 7 shows up, we're like, we need to look at that, and then we move on with our lives.
He did episodes of Drama Rama and Knights of God. In 1982, he was approached to ask to do Time Flight, which is a Peter Davison story, but he was busy that day. Time Flight is an episode which stars Anthony Ainsley as the Master, so he would have worked with his old classmate. Famously, I vaguely remember the episode Time Flight. I'm pretty sure the Master did a racist caricature in that episode, so good 80s sensibilities.
Oh, brilliant.
The first episode of Doctor Who he actually did direct was in season 24, the season before this, with Time in the Rani. Sylvester McCoy's very first episode, and he claims his first task for the episode was to cast the role of the 7th Doctor. So he was apparently the guy who cast Sylvester McCoy, which is kind of wild. for like the first time director of one episode to just cast the Doctor.
Yeah, that is crazy. Imagine that happening nowadays. Like,
Yeah.
some director from a random episode is like, oh, by the way, this is the Doctor now.
Yeah.
And like, Russell T Davis and Chris Chibnall or whatever, like they don't even have a say in it. It's just this dude's like, yeah, this is the guy. And everyone's like, what? What do you mean this is the guy?
I mean, I presume John Nathan Turner and whoever was, I don't even know if there was a casting director on Doctor Who at this time. I know very little about the behind the scenes process of 80s Doctor Who, but I imagine John Nathan Turner had a hand in, obviously, casting Sylvester McCoy, but the fact that Andrew Morgan was involved in the casting is kind of wild.
Yeah, for sure.
On Time of Rani, he wasn't very happy with his work on that episode, so he was glad to get a second chance to properly do an episode, and I would say this is a much better directorial effort on his part. To prepare for this story, he watched all 7 parts of the first Dalek story, and he also skimmed through a few more stories. I think he skimmed through basically all of the stories that were available at the time. This was his last Doctor Who story. There was speculation for years that he was banned from returning because he apparently overspent during this story, which, with all the explosions going off and all of that, it feels like it's in a very expensive episode.
Yeah, it does.
But it's been disputed several times that it doesn't make sense for him to be banned because, that never happens on television, on the BBC anyway. You would never get banned from directing again from just overspending money. It's not really a director's fault. It's more of a...
Well, it's kind of like an everybody's fault at that point because the director is in charge of everything, but producers are also supposed to help.
Yeah.
With budgeting and making sure things stay on track, and telling the director, hey, maybe we shouldn't spend all that money on sunglasses.
Yeah, if you
but
don't
also it's just like a nature of the business as well.
Yeah, if you don't understand that reference to sunglasses, 2 doctors apparently spent loads of money on this guy's sunglasses, which really is shocking.
It was like 200 quid or something, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
Andrew Morgan also made a cameo in Silver Nemesis alongside other directors, and even the guy who plays the Brigadier, whose name is escaping my mind at the moment. I'm bad with names. Nicholas Courtney. Nicholas Courtney also makes a cameo in that episode. I mean, after Doctor Who, he directed several episodes of EastEnders, Heartbeat, and a few children's shows like the 90s Famous 5 series and the 90s Worst Witch show, which I probably recognize as I would probably recognize his directing more from The Worst Witch because that was my jam as a kid. That was like my Harry Potter. Did you ever see The Worst Witch?
No, because I had friends, so never saw it.
It was a very good CITV show, which was basically like a young witch going to boarding school, and J.K. Rowling was like, hey, that kind of looks decent, I'm going to copy that.
Was it live action or was it a cartoon?
It was live action. I think it had like 2 spin-offs as well, and it's also...
That's probably why I never watched it. As a kid, I was not into kid shows that were live action. I thought they were cheesy as balls.
Oh yeah, I wasn't a fan of live action shows as a kid either, but like The Worst Witch was like one of the rare live action shows I actually watched because it felt cartoony enough because it was about magic and shit. So
yeah.
It also has like a CBBC reboot now. It's still on the air, I think. So it's a very popular series of books, which I never read the books, but TV show was decent.
Is CBBC still on the air?
It is.
Is that going?
I think it's going away next year, which is really sad. I know, it's depressing.
Yeah.
So Andrew Morgan wound up retiring around 2009, and he is currently 81 years old, so he's not one of the directors who died very, very young. He's still alive. He's still with us, at least.
Good. Fingers crossed we haven't cursed the man. Good stuff.
Do you want to jump into episode 3 now?
I suppose it's about time.
Hell
we
yeah.
watch episode 3 of Remembrance of the Daleks.
What? They're not landing a spaceship here.
Here? No. They're much too far from the main action.
You're sure?
Ace, get into the window!
I think I might have miscalculated.
The episode begins where we left off last episode, with Ace being surrounded by 4 Daleks screaming exterminate at her, but not actually firing because I guess they all needed to reload. And it is futile, however, because the Doctor and a bunch of army men come in and blow up the Daleks and save Ace. And that, well, they save Ace from death. Nobody actually goes to check on her. They just kill the Daleks and then start investigating said Daleks. And they look inside the blown up top half of the Dalek, and a weird, like, arm comes and grabs the Doctor's throat, which then gets beaten to death by blonde lady, who I don't remember at all from the other 2 episodes. I'm assuming she must have been there.
Yeah,
and
she was.
wasn't just randomly inserted into this episode, but I straight up don't remember her.
Apparently, the actress who plays Alison, this is her like first proper major role on television. She does decent enough, I think, in this episode.
Yeah, she's about on the same level as everybody else performance wise. She doesn't seem like nervous or like awkward or anything like that. Fits the role. But she kills the thing grabbing on the Daleks, onto the Doctor's neck, and the Doctor's like, these guys have mutated again. These are different than the other Daleks we saw. And science lady, whose name I don't remember either because it's been a long time, is like, the last she says a heap of science stuff where she's like, the other ones, they kind of had like tentacles. These ones don't really have tentacles. It's these are different Daleks. Interesting. Which is really our first clue for our heroes that there's 2 factions of Daleks going on. Yeah. Us as an audience kind of already know that because they've been talking about it in the previous episodes, but this is basically full-on confirmation as to why there are 2 Dalek factions. These are 2 different mutations of Daleks fighting one another.
Which is really cool. Which is really cool because, again, in the modern era, you just kind of forget that these are mutated creatures. Because a lot of the time we're just too robotic, in my opinion. I've said this before, but you just sometimes forget there's like a creature inside that's all mutated and disgusting. And
it's why I really liked Jodie's first New Year special with the Daleks, because there was a Dalek outside of its cage. How does a Dalek survive outside of its cage? It's like, it's a weird squid guy, isn't it? And it was focused on it being a weird squid guy. Rather than it being a killer robot.
I fucking loved that episode because it was like a horror episode. It was really effective, apart from the scenes where it got intercut with like Coronation Street level drama with Ryan and his dad.
Yeah, but still, it's like I definitely think it's up there as one of Jodie's best episodes.
We need to cover that in 20 years or whenever.
Yeah, there's a lot to cover. But then Ace is like, hey, no one said my name in a while, as we cut to Ace on the floor asking for help as everyone runs over to her and they're like, oh my god, have you died? Are you okay? And the Doctor gives her a bit of a telling off. And basically is like, you've got to be careful with time travel. It's a good thing that your boombox got destroyed, because if they got hold of that, it would mess up the timeline. Even Daleks aren't stupid enough to mess up the timeline. Cue cutting to the Daleks as
but the doctor telling her off for the boombox at this point is very strange, because episode 1 he could have been like, fucking leave that in the TARDIS. Like, don't play it in public.
I guess he was okay with it as long as she had hold of it. If she was just listening to music, he's like, fuck it, okay, because there's no way you're gonna listen to me, but we can deal with this. But if you lost it, then we're being a bit of shit.
It reminds me of an episode of American Dad where there's time travel involved and they accidentally leave like a best of a disco cassette tape in like the 60s or something, and Roger the alien uses it to kind of introduce the disco craze in the 60s instead of the 70s, and he becomes a big hit, like a millionaire, and then disco's dead immediately.
We then cut to it's been a long time since I watched American Dad.
Great show.
I remember it being
it's still on the fucking air. It's amazing.
Yeah, I remember it being the most consistently good out of Family Guy, Cleveland Show, and American Dad. I always remember enjoying American Dad more. Maybe I'll rewatch it at some point.
I think we're just about to start season 18, which is incredible.
Damn. Seth MacFarlane, man, he makes long-lasting shows.
Yeah.
But we then cut to the Daleks as they're like, it's a very short scene. It's just a Dalek at a command center being like, be prepared to attack, Daleks, blah, blah, blah. But it's a really cool set, I think, of the inside of that Dalek ship. With it's almost TARDIS-like with the big dome overhead and the flashing lights and stuff. It feels futuristic-y. It's also very funny to me that they're orbiting the Earth and on their map is only the United Kingdom. There's no other countries they're interested in. There's nothing else, it's just a map of the UK, which is the most Doctor Who alien invasion map you could possibly have.
Yeah, it's like that meme where it says, this is what aliens see when we see Earth, and it's just America.
Yeah.
This is that version of the meme. But yeah, the set is really great. Like, it doesn't look cheap. It looks decent for what it is, and it looks big because everything's all black. It looks much better than this is obviously filmed in a studio, like all Doctor Who episodes.
It wasn't filmed on a spaceship. They didn't film this. What do you mean it was filmed in a studio?
This is something that we go back to a lot. But if you go back to Sea Devils, their home base, you could just see it was set in a studio. They do a good job of hiding the fact this is a studio.
Yeah.
This looks like it's an actual spaceship.
Yeah, Sea Devils was very much theater with a stage that you were watching.
Same with the three Doctors.
Yeah, goddamn, yeah. We then cut to the Doctor and everybody else looking at the teleports again, and they're like, what do these do? And the Doctor's like, they teleport the evil Daleks in to come kill us, but I don't want them to do that yet because we have a whole episode and a half to go. And then he smashes up the machine with the baseball bat, which leaves you the question of why didn't he do that immediately? Instead of because before he messed with it to make the Daleks insides and outsides teleport to the same place, which again doesn't make sense, but he messed with it to do that. Like, why bother to mess with it like that when you can just smash the machine and actually stop it working? And that way you don't have to worry about Daleks teleporting in and stuff like that, and then the episode still continues where you get chased by a Dalek. Why didn't you smash it to start with, Doctor? You're an idiot. Absolute idiot.
So I've kind of lost the thread and the plot, to be honest with you, a little bit. But I think now, I think that now he knows that there's two Daleks, his plan has changed significantly. Before, he wanted the Daleks to get back to Earth and get the Hand of Omega because whatever reason we'll find out soon.
If he wanted the Daleks to do that, why did he bother to murder that first Dalek?
I don't know. It's been a while. It's been 2 weeks. I completely forget.
But we then cut to the Nazi guy walking through a graveyard, and he sees a gravestone with a pair of testicles on it.
It's a classic symbol for Omega.
It's I don't know. I've seen the Omega symbol before, and I've seen a pair of testicles before. And this, to me, looks a lot more like a pair of testicles than it does the Omega symbol. I feel like the Omega symbol is usually a bit more round than this is. This has got that little curved indent.
True. Okay.
But he finds the gravestone and he basically stares at it like, haha, lovely, as we cut to a diner with the Doctor and everybody sitting. Also, actually, hang on. That Omega symbol's upside down.
Is it?
And yeah, because the Omega symbol's like an arch.
No, it's a lowercase Omega symbol.
You get a lowercase Omega symbol?
Yeah, I just googled Omega symbol and it gives me the uppercase and the lowercase.
Oh, yeah.
The uppercase is kind of like
is
almost a circle.
Yeah, the uppercase is the one that you know Omega from. Lowercase is like it looks like a W, or in this case, a pair of testicles.
Yeah.
It's really weird that they would use a lowercase symbol.
Yeah.
For a name on a gravestone. Why would you do that? Because it's the hand of Omega, but Omega is a proper noun, so it should have a capital letter because it's a name.
I don't know.
Why did they do this? What was their thinking? But yeah, we cut to a diner with the Doctor who's sitting around thinking. Ace gets bored about all the thinking that the Doctor's doing and goes to sit with the boyfriend that, or quote unquote, like soon-to-be boyfriend she's kind of flirting with, but he's definitely a Nazi. And he introduces them to Paul and John, which I feel like are just two random names they chose for two white dudes, but it is also the 60s and there is the Beatles. And these guys are in military uniforms though, which kind of, I guess the whole Beatles vibe, but it's kind of fun if that was intentional or not.
I imagine it could be a reference. Maybe the writer was a big Beatles fan. Who knows? Who knows?
But we then cut back to Nazi guy who's digging a hole before cutting over to the Daleks who are like, oh shit, we found the hand of Omega, because that's what the guy was doing. He's like sticking like a tube or like a pipe down. He
sticks a pipe down the hole and it transmits a signal to the Dalek spaceship, because you can see like a cartoony lightning effect over the pole. It's very cartoony.
That wasn't real lightning. That wasn't real lightning. First, it wasn't a spaceship. Now it's not lightning. What the fuck is this episode about?
They should have harnessed the power of lightning for this episode.
But they say that they need to inform the Emperor Dalek, which is a big dun 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 moment. What the fuck's an Emperor Dalek? Of course, we've met an Emperor Dalek in New Who, which is a little bit different than this Emperor Dalek.
So before this, there's an Emperor Dalek in The Evil of the Daleks, who looked. It's different to this one is different to the one seen in Evil of the Daleks. This is more based on the TV 21 comic strips that were famous in the 60s. Obviously, the Emperor Dalek we're more familiar with because we're more familiar with modern Who is way bigger.
Yeah. Way bigger and way more like open and has this big tank in it and stuff. Like it's way more imposing looking. The Emperor Dalek in this episode, goofy guy, goofy looking guy with his big bulbous fucking head.
I love it because it's just a classic callback to 1960s comic strips. I really like it.
Yeah, it definitely it feels like a drawing. Like it's straight up like it's like a 1-to-1 from a drawing. But it's still goofy as fuck.
But of course we can talk about the spoiler, the big twist right now because we might as well. So this is what last episode I told you. I kind of hinted towards the other leader Dalek person. The one in the chair, in the bicycle helmet. Yeah. I kind of hinted that was done for us to you. Did I get you?
Did.
Did I trick you?
I will never admit to anything. So, there you go.
So, just to drop some trivia for you, the voice of the Dalek leader in the last episode of the bicycle helmet one was voiced by John Leeson, who's more famously K9. That's K9.
Oh, interesting.
And he was given directions to do basically a Terry Malloy impression, and apparently it was such a good impression that Sylvester McCoy thought it was actually Terry Malloy, but obviously Terry Malloy is playing Davros in this episode. But at the end of it, because the Davros reveal doesn't happen in this episode, at the end of the episode, Terry Malloy is credited as Roy Tomley, which is an anagram of Terry Malloy, which is fun.
That's fun. That's funny. It's the Davros being the Emperor Dalek is both fun and very silly.
Yeah.
You know, it makes sense from, like, if you were to look at Davros as a person, like, he would, like, the Daleks would almost pressure him into this final upgrade. And he'd be like, okay, but I'm the boss one. Like, I'm the cool guy. I'm the Emperor Dalek. I like, though, that he still isn't full Dalek. Like, he's still got his fucking human side. Like, he was like, we accelerated you guys to mutate, but, like, not me. Like, I'm gonna stay. I like my face. You can stick a bigger eye on me, but I'm still gonna be half human. It's very silly. It also, makes Davros's timeline even more interesting, where he starts off as, like, this, like, scientist dude, becomes emperor, and then, like, the Daleks revolt at one point and, like, don't like him, and then they kind of like him again, and he's in charge again, and then, like, he's just, like, fucking trapped in the basement or whatever of the Daleks and becomes the lowest of the low. What a tough time being a Dalek is, or at least being Davros. Daleks just don't like you. Like,
the Davros timeline is very confusing because he just keeps popping up, and the last episode he was presumed dead, and he keeps popping up, and it's like, wait, how did he get from here to here? It doesn't make any sense logically, and you have to fill a lot of logic holes really to make it work. Apparently,
my mind flashes.
Sorry, you're breaking up.
My mind flashes back to what Moffat said when he brought Missy back, which is like one of his favorite moments in Doctor Who is whenever they would kill off the Master in an episode, and then he would just appear in the next episode and say, "I escaped."
Yeah.
And so he did that with Missy, and it's a very similar vibe with Davros, where it's like, okay, none of this makes sense. I guess you just keep living and you keep being okay from everything that's going on. Like, it's just Doctor Who villains always escape. Like,
it's Doctor Who logic where one episode the big villain dies apparently, and then they come back. It's been a thing for ages. Like, a big debate has been had about where the Sacha Dhawan Master fits in, but I don't give a shit. I do not care because obviously it's two different entities of the character of the Master. Whereas with Davros, I kind of want to fill in more of the holes about how he survived, because it's the same character essentially, even though they may be played by different actors. It's still the same character, so it's weird. But Doctor Who canon is very strange.
Yeah, no, I get that, because Davros is like a mortal man, like he's just he's like a dude, whereas the Master is straight up like a god. Time Lords are essentially gods that can change their bodies and live forever. So you can get away with, I escaped, I used my magical powers. I mean, the Doctor literally teleports in episode 1 of this story.
Yeah. He even fixes, I forgot to mention this earlier, but he even fixes Ace's hurt leg in the episode just by rubbing it, basically.
Yeah.
He's basically like Jesus.
Yeah. Jesus' famous ability of teleportation. But yeah, no, I get that with Davros just being a regular dude, and like I usually have a problem in media when it's like there's no consequences and villains just like continue to live, and nobody death is never permanent, because I like to have death have meaning. Like if you're going to kill a character off, make it be impactful. Don't backtrack and bring that character back in an episode's time. But Doctor Who gets a free pass for me simply because it's the best show.
Is it?
That's it. Yeah.
You complain about it most of the time. I think we all complain about
because
Doctor
it's the
Who
best
most of the time.
because it's the best one, and we hold it to a higher standard.
Fair.
But the episode then continues as we cut back to the diner, and what did you say her name was, lady in brown shirt?
Her name is Rachel.
Rachel. Rachel goes on an extremely impressive rant to not the Brigadier, when the Brigadier's like, why are you at this job? And she's like, I didn't choose this job. I was drafted into this job, and I've been forced to do X, Y, and Z. And I'm getting no respect for anything that I've dedicated my fucking life to. So I'd like you to back off. It's a really good rant. I don't super get the point of it being in this episode, other than to give her some character, but I'm there for it. I really liked it. Like
the fact that they even give her a character is enough for me to be happy, because we've covered how many classic Doctor Who episodes where the woman character basically makes a cup of tea. Yeah. You know?
Literally sometimes. Literally. Like,
but, you know, the fact that she had to give this speech, I presume there wasn't many takes. There was probably like 3 takes at most. And she gives this speech. It's incredibly passionate. It's incredibly... There's no point where the flow breaks, where she forgets a word or something. She delivers the speech perfectly. It's a really good performance from her.
Yeah, it really is. It's just a fun scene in general. And we then cut to a creepy little girl, the same creepy little girl that's been following the Doctor around the school, seemingly the only student that goes to that school, as she skips up and watches Nazi Man and his mates dig up the hand of Omega, and Nazi guy walks over and he's like, What are you doing? Why are you here? She looks up into the sky, he looks up also, and we then cut to inside the Dalek spaceship yet again, as we get our first proper look at the Emperor Dalek with his big fuck off head. Very silly. I really, really appreciate how they didn't even try to mask Davros's voice. At all. Like, every other Dalek sounds like a Dalek, and this dude just straight up sounds like Davros. He like barely sounds like a Dalek at all. Like, he's got a slightly like muffled voice with a bit of roboticism in it, but that's it. Other than that, straight up Davros. Like, it's very silly.
But you know, if you're under the impression that the person in the chair was Davros, you would still be fooled by this, because you know you're thinking the guy in the chair is Davros because that's the Davros chair.
Yeah.
Where did the little girl get the Davros chair from? I guess Davros was pulled out of a chair or something. I don't know.
he made her a chair just for her. He was like, yeah, this will confuse everyone watching, and she's like, what are you talking about, Davros? And he's like, oh, I don't know. But we then cut back as the Nazi guys dig up the hand of Omega, and we cut off back to the diner. This episode, I feel, is possibly the most forgettable out of all 4. Like, it's a lot of episode 3 padding, which is a classic problem in Classic Who.
I don't think it's padding. It's more, these are the new stakes, and we're building up to a big final, because they make a revelation of, there's 2 teams of Daleks, and we have to build towards...
Except they made the revelation of 2 teams of Daleks in episode 2.
Okay. I forget that far ahead. Okay, I forget. But one thing about that scene is Radcliffe kind of looks around for the little girl, and the little girl is completely gone. Spooky.
Yeah, she's a creep. She's a big creepy girl.
You know, the Doctor isn't the only person who can teleport. What did he say?
I said she's not a big creepy girl. She's a little creepy girl.
Okay.
But yeah, we cut back to the diner as not the Brigadier gets everybody to come on with him out to go back to the school, and Ace is like, what's going on, and the Doctor's like, there's 2 Daleks, Ace, have you not caught on yet? Just in case we haven't quite figured that out, and we then cut back again.
There's also a reference in this scene. Give me a second for the correct quote. Where Rachel says, I wish Bernard was here. British rocket group's got its own problems. And this is a reference to Quatermass, which is a 1950s TV serial about astronauts who go out into space and they come back to Earth with an alien amongst them. And it's basically kind of like Venom, who kind of like takes over the body of one of the astronauts. And this is like a big famous 50s serial that got multiple sequels, a few film adaptations and stuff. I've never seen it.
There was a lot of stuff.
Good.
There was a lot of stuff in the 50s about aliens taking over people's bodies. You know? Like that, like the original The Thing.
Yeah.
I feel like an Invasion of the Body Snatchers was in the 50s as well.
I
Like
think
there was a lot of sci-fi about aliens possessing people in the 50s. Something in the water back then. Like, we then cut back again to Nazi guy with all his pals taking in the hand of Omega into like a warehouse or whatever. And he gets on a telephone call, and we then cut to the school where we see Ace's soon-to-be lover, but definitely 100% a Nazi, being told that there's a phone call for him. Why could there be a phone call for him? I wonder if it's the guy we just saw on the phone telling him that they've got the hand of Omega. We then cut off to the Doctor and Ace walking up into the school yet again. Just chatting
the Doctor
shit,
and Ace
really.
are
They're
having
talking
a
about
conversation.
Chunky.
Okay. The Doctor, this is a line I have to explain. The Doctor asks why they call the general leader Chunky. Originally, there was no dialogue in this scene, and Sylvester McCoy thought the scene was boring, so he suggested for the line, keeping an eye on Group Captain Chunky Gilmore. Although wise men call him Chunky, I have no idea. This was an inside joke. In the script, Gilmore's gun was referred to as a chunky revolver, so the director would tell Simon to bring out his chunky. So on set, he was nicknamed Chunky Gilmore. As the inside joke. It's a joke that only two people would understand.
Incredible.
You would have to be on the set of this episode to understand the joke.
Yeah. No, what I appreciate most about that scene and about that story is Sylvester McCoy looking at a scene where they have to walk in silence and going, that's boring as fuck. Let's do something interesting and at least have a conversation. I wish everybody else in classic Doctor Who said something like that. It would make the show so much more fun to watch at times, because the amount of silent walking we have had to endure in our watch through of classic Who has been absurd. Like,
oh yeah, a famous one, if you're new to the channel, is in The Hand of Fear, where Sarah Jane Smith walks through a power plant for about 2.5 minutes in just pure silence.
Like 10. It feels like 10. Right?
And there's like 30 to 40 shots of just her walking. She's outside the power plant. She gets inside the power plant and she just keeps walking and walking. It's incredible.
Yeah. Top tier stuff. Oh, God.
Yeah, that's how boring it is. Just thinking about it makes you
just
yawn.
Thinking about it, yeah. But the scene with the Doctor and Ace gets very good once they head into the school and go to the stairwell, when Ace starts asking questions about who Omega is and what the hand of Omega is. And Sylvester McCoy is like, okay, here's some lore stuff that we're definitely going to pay attention to in Doctor Who and never, ever contradict or like forget about ever again. And he explains that the hand of Omega is not actually the hand of Omega. Like, it's not like the literal hand of Omega. It was the name for the tool that he used to create various like stars or whatever, or rather the
Yeah.
tool that we used, the Doctor said, and then quickly correct himself to they, which is a fun bit because he's referring to like the first Time Lords essentially.
Yeah.
It's a fun bit of like, ooh, who even is the Doctor? This is a bit of mystery. It also does play into Flux. I'll give Chris Chibnall that. It does play in to Flux, with the infinite amount of Doctors, and the Doctor is way older than we even suspect, and they've been doing all this weird timey-wimey nonsense things, and they have a secret life. Like that does work. It does work for me.
Yeah, he's talking about the early days of Time Lord civilization before they become Time Lords even, because obviously this is when Omega is creating is creating the device that could travel through time, because obviously for the 3 Doctors, which we've covered last
Are you being murdered by seagulls right now?
Do you hear the seagulls?
Yeah, that's fucking crazy loud.
When we did the 3 Doctors, we discovered that basically Omega is the person who created time travel, and this scene seems to suggest that the Doctor was there when they did time travel. This kind of contradicts previous episodes for multiple reasons, but this is part of a Cartmel master plan, which would have involved the Doctor's mysterious past getting out in the foreground a bit more to make the Doctor more mysterious, because a lot of the mystery of the Doctor was lost for multiple years in Doctor Who. The book actually gives us a scene where Rassilon, Omega, and an unnamed Time Lord, which obviously is the Doctor, discover time travel. Rassilon and Omega both think it's a magnificent achievement, while the other Time Lord thinks it may be a terrible weapon, which is a really good scene. I really liked the scene. It's really cool.
It's I like the adding of the mystery into the Doctor's lore. I totally understand how the Doctor could have lost mystery, especially at this point in Doctor Who, when it's been on the air for like 20 odd years, and they've been like, okay, these are the Time Lords, this is what the Doctor's up to, this is exactly what the Time Lords are like and what the Doctor's rules are, and they've delved so deep into the lore of Gallifrey and stuff like that the Doctor's no longer this crazy like weird science guy. He's just like, yeah, okay, you're a Time Lord, dude, we get it. And adding this bit where it's like maybe he's older than we think, maybe he's been like, involved with Time Lord history deeper than we even know, I really like. It does add some fucked up stuff with the timeline even still to... Well, I guess, does it? Because in Flux, I'm going to try and make sense of this. Okay, so in Flux, we see that the Doctor comes to Gallifrey as a child from a mysterious portal in the sky.
Yeah, I think
and then they get like
the end of series 12. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, but they get experimented on and turned into like their power of regeneration gets given to the Gallifreyans, and the Time Lords like caste system is created. And then I guess from there, growing up, the Doctor, in one of their previous incarnations, perhaps, discovered time travel, and was then like the formation of Division happened, and they set out to go off on various time travel missions and doing all this time travel stuff as a weapon, as what the Doctor feared it would be used as, because this is the Time Lords doing evil Time Lordy stuff. Then at some point, the Doctor goes on the run as the fugitive Doctor, because they don't want to be involved with Division anymore. They fuck around with Jodie for a bit before, I assume at a certain point, getting caught by Division or by the Time Lords and being forced to regenerate into a child and having their memories wiped, and then that child growing up with the Master, looking into the time vortex where the sound of drums gets put into the Master's head, and then the Doctor, that version of the Doctor, possibly regenerates again because the Doctor has hinted at growing up as a little girl, not a little boy. But in the episode with David Tennant, we see it as clearly as a little boy. So maybe he like bashed his head off a rock or something. And so that kid then grows up to be Hartnell, who. But the only blip I've got, and then like the Doctor Who's story happens, and you've got like the season 6B Doctor and whatever. But the only blip I've got there is, how does Sylvester McCoy's Doctor remember being back with the Hand of Omega? If that happened before the division stuff happened, because the Doctor has their memory wiped by their mum/division, so they wouldn't remember creating time travel with Omega. That's the one blip that I can't quite make sense of right now.
Okay, yeah, that was a lot. But the problem with what Chris Chibnall did was he revealed way too much by showing and not telling, you know? This is, in this episode, Remembrance of the Daleks, is just a little hint about the Doctor's mysterious past, whereas in The Timeless Child, we learned way too much. And it kind of...
We learned a lot, yeah.
And it retroactively creates so many plot holes. Like, okay, let's ignore The Timeless Child for once. Because we bring up The Timeless Child on almost every podcast at this point. Let's ignore it.
It's because I'm still trying to make sense of it. It's such a big fucking deal.
Let's pretend Doctor Who ended in 1989. There's no more Doctor Who. There's no books, which also contradicts the canon heavily. One blip that creates a contradiction that I can think of is when John Pertwee meets Omega in The Three Doctors. He doesn't acknowledge him as kind of like a co-worker. He kind of acknowledges him as like a mythological... I can't say the word.
Mythological
figure.
Mythological. Yeah.
I cannot speak. That's why I leave you to do most of the speaking. But he kind of sees Omega as a mythological figure rather than like a co-worker, which is where the contradiction comes from. There's no recognition between Omega and the Doctor. That's the only hole I can see. But going back to
maybe hang on, I can answer this plot hole for you. Maybe Sylvester McCoy, when he's referring to as like we helped develop this, like maybe he was involved in the creation of the Hand of Omega with Omega and the other Time Lords, but maybe he was like the guy that got the coffees, you know, like he's part of the team, but he's not directly involved in creating the thing. He's there to make sure everybody is like refreshed and ready to go. So he never really got that one-on-one interaction with Omega. He always kind of wanted it, but he didn't quite get it, and so he's always revered Omega as this like fucking godlike being. Because he's like, fuck, I got that guy coffee that one time. That was fucking crazy. Like.
Yeah, I think the implication is the Doctor was working with both Rassilon and Omega. And yeah, it kind of contradicts things a little bit, but you can kind of forgive that because this is indicated in just one line of dialogue. You can kind of wave it off, you know?
Yeah.
This season also introduces like the arc of maybe the Doctor being Merlin, because in Silver Nemesis, he meets a lady from like the 1400s who keeps referring to him as Merlin. So the indication is that the Doctor is actually Merlin, because the indication
That's fun. I kind of like that.
The Doctor is kind of magic, as indicated in episode 1 or 2 of his story where he swaps seats. So you can kind of see where the Merlin thing comes from.
Plus, like, you know, the Doctor getting bored and going back to like medieval times and just like using regular technology and medical science. They'd be like, "Holy fuck, you're a wizard!" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." Like,
yeah. But what I do like about this scene is it's just one line. It's not a entire monologue given by Sacha Dhawan, where it's just like that was like a 10-minute scene giving the Doctor's background and showing it to us.
Yeah.
Great detail. Here is kind of just, I guess that's something we can make fan theories of, rather than it being just given to us.
Yeah.
Which
yeah,
again
that's true.
adds more mystery. It adds more mystery to the character. Whereas when Sacha Dhawan gives a massive speech, it's kind of takes away the mystery because we know the Doctor's origin now. It's kind of ruined.
Yeah, they it's a weird choice to reveal. I assume the idea behind it is to reveal the Doctor's origin, but then to have even more questions. So
Yeah.
you're like, you think you're getting an answer, but really you're just being given a bigger mystery. And on one side, that's true because we have talked about it every fucking week for like 2 years. what it means, like how does it fit? What does anything mean? So I guess that kind of works, but it's more like a frustrating way of trying to make it work because it feels so obtuse and out of nowhere, whereas like a little line like this makes you go, ooh, that's fun, what does that possibly mean, you know, rather than like, wait, you're breaking the canon here, hang on, fucking slow down. Like
You know, even when Snake Man was revealed as the person who originated UNIT, that also creates so much contradiction. It's like Chris Chibnall did a lot of fan service, fan wanky shit that I don't like because it's just too heavy. You know,
he did do a lot for sure of, I had these ideas when I was a kid watching Doctor Who, and I'm just gonna write them in. Like, what if UNIT was actually made by an alien, and what if the Doctor was actually like space Jesus, and you know, what if this and what if that, and now it's just canon now. Like, there's definitely ideas that worked and ideas that were cool. Time Lord Cyberman, that's fucking rad as fuck. You know, like he definitely has good ideas mixed in there. It's a lot of ideas at once.
like I don't even mind the timeless child as a concept. But you could have kept it a mystery, and I would have been completely fine with it. We wouldn't discuss it every fucking week. Just keep it as a mystery, like a big, like just mention it offhandedly once or twice, you know. Keep it a mystery, and we'd be fine with it. I have no idea what Andrew Cartmel would have done if there was a season 27 or season 28. Like, he could have fucked up the show completely in the same way Chris Chibnall kind of did. But as it stands, this throwaway line, as well as multiple episodes where a little bit more of the Doctor's past is revealed to us, is great. I really like more mystery because, you know, the show's name is Doctor Who is the Doctor, and adding a bit more mystery is completely fine in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I'm all for it. I think it's fun. But we then cut to Nazi guy and his friends as they're loading the coffin off the truck. The episode continues with the Nazi guy and all his mates as he's like, we fucking won, lads, let's just sit back and kick our feet up. Another victory for us, the Daleks will be on their way, we've sorted it. And then suddenly his best pal Davros turns around and reveals themselves to not be Davros, but to instead be the spooky little girl, just kind of vibing in the chair with the motorcycle helmet on. And it's really ridiculous. Like, there's no like covers or like anything, like it's just a regular chair that kind of looks like Davros's seat from the back, but not at the front. And it's not like he's only looked at the back, like he's been around the side. He's like, he would have 100% seen that that's not Davros, that's a little girl.
And Ratcliffe has walked into this room about 4 or 5 times in this story, and he not once noticed that a 9-year-old child has been sitting on that chair the entire time. Mental.
It's very funny. It's very funny as well when she takes off the helmet, because when she's got the helmet on, she's got Davros's voice. And then when she takes off it, she's still got Davros's voice for like 1 or 2 words before it goes into the girl voice. Very funny. It's ridiculous. And what's even more ridiculous is his performance, because like he's suddenly like a cartoon character scared, and then like fucking Daleks come in and he's just frozen like, oh no.
His hands are kind of doing the clutch motion towards his chest, and he's just terrified. He's shaking. His performance does turn into a cartoon also. Ben Aronovich wasn't exactly sure what he wanted from his twist. He wasn't sure why the girl was pretending to be Davros. He didn't want a twist with no point, and he was too busy dealing with deadlines to really consider this for a while. So it was really a twist for the sake of having a twist. And then he came up with a solution of it basically being a battle computer right as he's writing this scene. The Doctor comes in later on and he reveals that the little girl was chosen because she has imagination and she has creativity, and that's why she has to be wired up to a battle computer, which is really silly. Really weird.
It is really silly. It's not quite as silly as to what the battle, like the time machine they have. Like the battle computer is very silly with the motorcycle helmet and whatnot, but the time machine tool thing that they've got, that is the plasma ball, that if you stick your hands to it, you get bits of like plasma, like lightning striking your hands, and it's like all cool. And when you're like 6 years old, it's the fucking most insane thing you've ever seen in your life. But that's what the Daleks have been using. So we've been missing out, Scott, for the past fucking 20 odd years. We've had the power of time travel literally at our fingertips, and we've just squandered it. We've just completely squandered it.
Yeah, they're using plasma globes to travel through time, which is wild. Plasma globes, fun fact, were invented by Nikola Tesla. So, yeah, a future guest star, Doctor Who, invented time travel, basically. They weren't as popular when this episode was filmed, but like a few years later, it immediately became like a novelty item that you would just buy for your relatives that for birthdays and shit. Like I gave a plasma globe to my friend a few years ago. It has like a skeleton hand grabbing onto it.
Oh, that's cool. That's fun.
It's a fun novelty item. You get sick of after like an hour, but they're fun.
You get sick of like touching it, but I can see it being like a funky makeshift lamp, to give you give your room a bit more of a vibe at nighttime rather than just like a regular lamp. It's like I'm going to turn on the plasma ball and have the lights go all bzz, bzz, bzz. Like
we said this in the Dalek movie, but the first Peter Cushing Dalek movie has the Daleks with lava lamps as the only furniture in their spaceships. I want a lava lamp. They're so cool. We used to
lava lamps
one.
are great. Lava lamps are great. My friend got a lava lamp recently, like fucking like last year. And it's a vibe. They're like I hadn't seen a lava lamp since I was like a kid, and they just you appreciate them more as an adult. I think not enough people own lava lamps, like.
Yeah, my in my head, I'm thinking 2 lava lamps at either side of my television.
Oh fuck!
Yeah,
you
now
better
we're talking,
chill out.
baby.
Fucking 2 lava lamps. Holy fuck! Your mind would explode.
I still am kept up at night wondering why the Daleks in the Dalek movie had just the one lava lamp in their city. It's like the only furniture they have. One lava lamp.
They're just down a vibe. They're just down a vibe, man. They're
famously
all about
fascists.
peace and love, Daleks. Like,
yeah, famously fascists are always groovy dudes.
So, the episode continues as we see some very nervous Daleks. They're really, really nervous about being on camera, and they're a bit shaky and a bit like, oh fuck, I hope I don't mess up.
Maybe they've had a bit too many shots of courage. You know what I mean? When took too much alcohol to encourage themselves. A bit too much because they're just wobbling all over the place, my dude.
They are. It's honestly ridiculous how wobbly these Daleks are. Like, it doesn't look like they're moving on wheels. Like, it's straight out. It looks like someone is just like walking. Like they're just like going doot, 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 doot,
yeah, it reminds
left,
me
right,
of when when you're at school and you're just bored and you're on a computer chair and you just kind of move around on the chair with your legs and you're just kind of wobbling around all over the place. It kind of feels like that.
Yeah, it is very silly.
It's honestly probably the only weak part of the episode, I would say, because it really takes me out of the episode anyway, just to see those these Daleks just kind of wobbling around here, kind of aware of the limitations of the budget and the time restrictions, and you're just watching the actors inside the Dalek costume desperately try to move her weight around as much as possible to kind of keep them balanced, but it doesn't work.
It doesn't work at all. It's hilarious, and it's genuinely hilarious, and it's one of the few parts in this story, I think, as a whole, where the budget lets it down.
Yeah.
Because I think they manage the budget really well in this story, where you don't really feel the low budgetness of it. Like the only thing that's letting it down besides this is the fact it's shot on tape and looks like shit, you know. Like if they shot it on, if they had the budget for like film and stuff, this would be a fantastic looking episode, and the only thing letting it down would be the wobbly Daleks, because like even the effects they do at the end of the episode, which we'll talk about with the spaceship, like that looks fucking fantastic. You know.
It reminds me, Tip Tippin, when the stunt coordinator, when he joined the team, his only concern was, oh, this is shot on tape, so all of my stunts might look like shit. Because, you know, tape might not be the best method to film your show in. It kind of looks blurry and shit. Maybe not the best format. But
they end up hiding inside like this tent bit at the back of a truck, and eventually making their way back around to the school. They bump into Ace's boyfriend guy with a bunch of soldiers, and they all turn around and go running on back to warn people that the Daleks are coming.
There's a comedic point where the doctor's inside of the tent and he's about to sneeze and he has to stop himself. That feels more like a season 24 7th Doctor, because starting from this story, we've got a more conniving 7th Doctor rather than the bumbling fool he was presented as in season 24, sorry. And I prefer the darker, mysterious 7th Doctor, because it's much more interesting. So it's a bit of an interesting thing to watch the two 7th Doctors kind of clash in a way, because the sneeze kind of takes the sneeze kind of feels like a cheap joke in a way.
Yeah, for sure. It doesn't bother me so much, but I do also prefer darker 7th Doctor. I think he's more interesting when he's like, but like I like that, like he tries to be this like goofy fun guy, but he's got this edge to him where he's like he's mean spirited at times, you know.
My favorite thing about this episode is I forgot to mention it earlier because we were just too caught up in talking about the Timeless Children again, but in that scene on the staircase, Ace is really impressed with the 7th Doctor's conniving side, which will bite her in the ass in Curse of Fenric, which we've already covered at the end of the episode, where the Doctor basically abuses Ace's trust at the very end of the story, if you remember, which was a huge emotional moment for Ace. You know, it's interesting how they kind of carried on, you know, the Doctor and Ace's trust in each other, and how they kind of turned that into a plot point. I really like the consistency in terms of Ace's character, even. Because Ace feels like a proper character. And another thing I forgot to mention last time was in the scene where Ace is in the house and she sees the no coloured signs. I imagine it kind of brings back horrible feelings to Ace, because in season 26 it is revealed that when Ace was in present day London, she was at her friend's house, her black friend's house, and she was in the house when the house got attacked in like a racist attack with petrol bomb being thrown through the letterbox, and this was a horrible event for Ace to go through. And I imagine, you know, you could put it like a retcon kind of thing, that she was thinking of that moment when she saw the no coloured signs, just the horribleness of like racism, you know, because this is revealed in season 26. So it's interesting just to watch the early signs of a story arc being carried on with a companion in the classic era who, the companions in the classic era don't usually get too much character, and it's nice to see Ace have some character,
Yeah, I agree completely. I really like Ace as a companion. I think she's definitely one of my favorite Classic Who companions, and I really, really like her relationship with Sylvester McCoy's Doctor. I think it's some superb stuff that they really handle well, and it's a shame that this is where Doctor Who ends, because it really does feel like it's getting back on track.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh wait, hang on, we've got something here. We can do something with this, and it's over.
Yeah.
It was.
I struggle with a lot of John Nathan Turner era episodes because most of the 80s Doctor Who kind of feels mostly like a pantomime, whereas, season 25 and 26 begin to feel like a proper TV show again, rather than just a comedic, over-the-top pantomime.
Yeah.
I say that, but the very next episode is the Happiness Patrol is very much a pantomime, but
the Happiness Patrol seems like a vibe. It seems like a cool vibe.
We should cover it someday. It's fun. I kind of like the Happiness Patrol. It has deeper themes than just a big pantomime episode.
I think it would be my favorite episode ever.
There's like a puppet dog that's evil. It's fun.
Amazing. But this episode continues as they run back into the base, and Ace's boyfriend starts talking about the Hand of Omega, and the Doctor's like, how did you know about the Hand of Omega? And he's like caught. He's like just fucking stunned, and he tries to come up with the best excuse he can. He's like, fucking Ace told me. And then Ace never says, no, I didn't. She just goes to hit him. She's like, you lying piece of shit. I goes to absolutely floor him. The Doctor holds her back, and she's like, he's a lying traitor. This dude, he ratted us out to the Daleks. He's been working with them. I feel like he gets off too easy in this episode when the Brigadier's like, what's going on? He's like, I didn't know they were Daleks. And he's like, oh, okay, that's fine. Get in your fucking way. Like, that doesn't seem like an appropriate punishment for someone that ratted you out to the ultimate killing machine, accidentally or not. Like,
this is kind of like another story arc that was kind of like a casualty because of the deadlines. Ben Aronovich wasn't really sure where the character was going as he was writing, and obviously the deadlines are just too tight, and he couldn't figure it out really. That's what he says anyway. I think it's fine enough, it's trying a bit more character arcs than you usually see in classic Doctor Who, but it does need a bit more. It needs a bit more of a conversation,
because I think it makes his character less interesting. It's more interesting when he's doing it on purpose to undermine everybody. It's less interesting when he's like, I didn't know they were Daleks. I'm sorry. Like why the fuck were you doing it then? Were you just working with the Nazi guy because you're like, I like this Nazi? Or like, why? Why?
In the book, it's kind of like revealed that Ratcliffe is kind of like a father figure to Mike, and that's why he because he's indoctrinated with like with the Nazi stuff. It's not really presented well in this show because we're just kind of working together for no reason seemingly, but there's at least a reason in the book. The book is pretty good at giving more motivations.
But this episode then continues as we cut off to the Daleks approaching the Earth in a very nice looking shot, again very Star Warsy, and the Doctor's like, the Daleks are never, they're not going to land here anytime soon. We've got time to figure out a plan and get things sorted out. And then all the Daleks start retreating, and Ace is like, fucking, they're running away, bunch of cowards. And she yells out, what does she yell out to them as they're running away again? Wimps. She calls all the Daleks a bunch of wimps, which is a very, very 80s insult and a very Ace insult. I like it a lot. It's fun. And then the Dalek ship comes landing down, and it's very good miniature. Like that miniature, I feel like you could stick it in the Doctor Who and the Daleks movie, and it wouldn't be out of place. Like they did a fucking standout job with it.
It's interesting that you say it's a miniature. It's actually a full-sized prop. Like
What a waste of money.
So yeah, the writer was invited on the filming of location that day, and he was expecting it to be like a cheap green screen effect, but they actually got like a massive crane that built this huge prop. It looks really cool. It's really impressive. I don't think it's a waste of money because it just obviously they need the prop.
No, it's cool. It is cool, but I mean, like budget wise, you could do it with a miniature. But it is cool. I'll give them that. It is cool that they built a full-size fucking spaceship for no reason.
But it does add so much more to the episode when you know for sure is a full-sized prop and not. I'm sure a miniature would be cool enough. It would have looked impressive, but the fact they went way out of their proportions to just do this because it's the 25th anniversary story, We need a big spectacle, and I think we spent the budget really well because it shows. It looks really solid. The design isn't quite interesting enough. On this audio commentary, Sophie Aldred says it looks like an egg box, which I can kind of see where she's coming from.
Yeah, I can get that. Yeah,
but the fact they got a huge crane and lowered it onto the school playground is really cool. Like, I wonder what the kids must have thought when they went back to school after this summer, with the knowledge that Doctor Who filmed there, and there's a huge spaceship there, and there's Daleks there. That must have been so cool.
Yeah. It would be cool for all the fucking nerds who would then get beaten up for liking what a dorky show. But yeah, no, it was cool. Ace also does a fucking insane stunt where she just, like, instead of going around the table, she just hops up on top of them and jumps across both tables. Like, fucking Jesus Christ, those are slippy tables. But then the episode ends in the most bizarre way, in a way that I was not expecting at all, so everyone's like crowded down and like taking shelter, and then Sylvester McCoy looks up and looks dead into the lens and goes, "Oh, well, I might have miscalculated that one." And then it cuts to the credits. I was like, fucking, I was not expecting the Doctor to break the fourth wall, but, and again, credit to Stephen fucking Moffat bringing, like, this weird aspect of classic Who into modern Who with what he did with Capaldi, when Capaldi was like, fuck it, I look into the camera, I'm that Doctor, I'm the Doctor that's going to break the fourth wall, which I really appreciate. But it's just those little touches that Moffat managed to bring in with, especially in Capaldi's run, with Missy and the Master stuff, and with Capaldi looking into the lens, and I'm sure a plethora of other things as well. Like even like Capaldi's outfit, that's inspired by Storm Pertwee's one, isn't it? It's a lot of love letter stuff in classic Who in Capaldi's era, which I think goes unappreciated at times.
What I like about this cliffhanger is 98% of all cliffhangers are, oh my god, this character is probably going to die in this scene. And then the next episode opens up with them immediately being saved. This cliffhanger is the Doctor has spent the entire episode trying to set up the events so that he can, he's trying to calculate all the events so he can be victorious. And then the cliffhanger is, oh shit, I might have miscalculated. Oh shit, what do I do next? It really works.
Yeah. It does work. I wasn't expecting it, and it literally made me go, "What the fuck?" At the end. But it was a lot of fun, and it's a solid enough episode. I think it's possibly my least favorite episode in the entire 4 arc story, simply because it's it's set up, it's the third episode. Let's set up everything for the 4th episode really quickly issue that they always fall into, but it's still fine.
It's better than a lot of other third episodes, especially
of course.
Enemy
a
of
lot
the World
of
Part
other
3.
episodes are the worst pieces of TV ever made.
And also, now that we've seen all 3 cliffhangers to this story, I don't think there's a single weak cliffhanger. I think they've all been really effective. Like, I think the second one is the weakest.
Yeah, I was about to say episode 2's cliffhanger is the weakest for sure.
Episode 2 is the weakest, but it's still decent enough. All the Daleks saying exterminate, you might lose. Sophie Ellery does Ace in our very first episode. I don't think so.
Yeah.
But yeah, decent cliffhangers, I would say.
Yeah. It's fun. It's a fun time. But with that, let us jump straight into episode 4 and wrap up Remembrance of the Daleks.
Ross, the hand of Omega is not to be trifled with.
I think I am quite capable of handling the technology.
I sincerely doubt that.
Does it worry you, Doctor, that with it I will transform Scaro's son into a source of unimaginable power? And with that power at my disposal, the Daleks shall sweep away Gallifrey and its impotent golem of Time Lords! The Daleks shall become Lords of Time! We shall become all
Powerful! Crush the lesser races! Conquer the galaxy! Unimaginable power! Unlimited rice pudding! Etc., etc.!
That anger me, Doctor! I can destroy you and this miserable, insignificant planet!
Oh, wonderful! What power! What brilliance! You can wipe out the odd civilization, enslave the occasional culture, but you still won't detract from the basic fundamental truth of your own impotence!
Careful, Doctor.
Episode 4 begins where we left off episode 3 with the Dalek ship coming down and the Doctor looking into the camera being like, oopsie doopsie, I made a whoopsie. Then the episode continues on as we see the Daleks emerge out of the Dalek ship, and this is where I think the benefit, as you were saying, of them having a full-scale ship comes in, because you can actually see real Dalek models come out of this ship. The one thing is maybe the roof is a bit low for that to be a functioning ship with Daleks in it, but them coming out of the door, it looks really fucking cool. Like, you get the scale is almost exactly right.
Also, the ship itself is just way too small to fit these many Daleks inside of it. I'm not sure.
Time Lord technology. They stole it from the Time Lords. It's bigger on the inside.
I can't remember how many Daleks exactly come out, but they basically did two shots of these Daleks coming out to me, intercut it, so it looks like there's twice the amount of Daleks. So they definitely planned around it and filmed cleverly. And it looks, again, just the whole prop looks great. It feels, Doctor Who around this time was shot on such a low budget. It feels like they were just spending as much as they could economically. Like, it makes sense to spend this much money on your 25th anniversary special.
Yeah, it does. It looks really cool. And I'm a big fan of the white and gold Daleks. I think that they look fucking real sexy. Which, sometimes when you get a color altered Dalek, they don't look great. I'm thinking of the Power Ranger Daleks and stuff like that. But the white and gold, it's a nice looking design. I think I wouldn't mind seeing them come back, perhaps. But we then cut off to Ace and her boyfriend guy that she was kind of flirting with, who turned out to be a Nazi working with the Daleks. And he's pleading to her, hey, I didn't realize I was working with the Daleks. I just thought I was working with a Nazi. That's okay, right? And Ace tells him, no, that's not okay. What are you talking about? I don't like you very much anymore. Go away from me. Which I think is a very fair reaction for Ace to have. Her performance here is fantastic. It's I don't like the boyfriend guy. He's a total douche.
Well, that's a fair thing to say about a literal Nazi. But yeah, Sophie's performance here is really solid, and it's nice that we finally have a companion in classic Doctor Who is finally able to explore emotions other than screaming and making tea. Making tea is a big emotion.
Okay, well, I mean, it is an emotion I have multiple times a day. You need to make some tea right now. But yeah, it's never the most engaging to watch. But yeah, no, this is really nice to see a character actually have character. It's crazy to think that it took 25 years. You know, there's been companions before Ace, obviously, that had some arcs and some character stuff going on, but I feel like Ace is really one of the standout ones where it's like, oh, you've actually got depth and you've got stuff going on, you know, like you've got all these trust issues with now your boyfriend guy, the doctor dude, the way you were raised. Like, you know, Ace has got such a actual backstory and history behind her that you just don't find with so many other companions.
Yeah, Ace is the first companion where the producers behind the scenes in the entire time were thinking, oh, let's further the character of Ace. Whereas, you know, before this, you had characters like Sarah Jane. She was such a strong character, and eventually they were less interested in writing good character moments for Sarah Jane. She could literally be anyone else. Like, you know, anyone else could have been walking through a power plant and be Hand of Fear.
That's true. Although I don't know if anyone could do it quite as well as Sarah Jane, you know, like yeah, no, but Sarah Jane's good. I like Sarah Jane, but I really like Ace as a companion. I think she's got such an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, and
I think Sylvester McCoy is the perfect doctor for her as well. You know?
Oh yeah, their chemistry together is amazing. Like we fucking told them to their faces. Well, you did anyway.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't figure out what to say. I was too nervous. But But yeah, a lot of people credit Russell T Davies for actually being the first one to write an interesting companion, but I think Ace is the first interesting companion, and then even Grace in the TV movie was interesting enough, you know, her double life between her job and her husband or whatever.
Yeah. I don't know enough classic Who companions.
Yeah, we've barely scratched the surface on this show.
There's so many. They're like every time I watch an episode and I'm like, oh, who's this person? What do you mean they're a companion? I've never seen this person in my life. I've never even heard of them. Like, there's just like 1,000 different companions that have gone with the Doctor. But yeah, God, there's so much Doctor Who. But anyway, this episode continues on as we cut off to some Daleks under a bridge as the white and gold Daleks approach, and these are two warring factions of Daleks, and they get into a firefight. And you know, the special effects for this firefight have aged a bit, they've dated a bit, but I think it holds up in a way where it's still a fun action scene. Like, you can get over the shitty lasers they're firing and completely missing with one another, and just kind of get sucked into the, oh my fuck, we're watching two Daleks fight one another right now. And it's really cool. The soundtrack is also fantastic throughout this episode.
Oh yeah, they do a good job of shooting around the limitations of the Daleks, because as we've covered many times, these Daleks can't move very well. So we're just standing here the entire time missing each other, and somehow it's interesting. It's not cheesy, it's not terrible, it's not something we laugh at. It's interesting, it's fun, because there's good pyrotechnics going on behind the Daleks, and two of the grey Daleks even shoot one of the white and gold Daleks, and it looks really cool. I like explosions, things go boom.
It is. And as this is going on, we cut back to the Dalek mothership.
Oh, there's even a good transition between the two scenes. As one of the Daleks kind of shoots towards the camera, and the camera kind of gets engulfed in light, and then that's the transition to the next scene. It's really cool.
Yeah. It is pretty cool. As we go back to the mothership, and the Emperor Dalek, that's definitely not Davros, is saying that they need to send in like the weapon or whatever the fuck it's called. I don't remember. And it's basically it's a really famous Dalek model that I've seen before through things like Doctor Who magazine and stuff like that, and I'd never really placed it in whatever episode it's from. But it's like the tank Dalek, where it's got like this like World War II sort of like helmet as a head, and then a huge cannon in the center that's surprisingly very intricately detailed. Like, it looks fantastic and really well like worn and metallic, and then it's got like the Dalek body at the bottom, but it's very dissimilar from an actual Dalek itself. It looks way more like a tank, and it's just very cool.
Yeah, we've seen this. Well, you've seen this Dalek before in Asylum of the Daleks, but the basic premise of Asylum of the Daleks was, you're going to see every single Dalek model that was ever created. And a lot of the Dalek models are just in the background in dimly lit shots, so you can't really see them. I think this is one of the models that were just in the background and dimly lit, so you can't really see it. So you've technically seen it before on the show. So yeah, in the script, the special weapons Dalek was written to look nothing like a traditional Dalek. It was described as like a floating weapons platform, which obviously was cut because it's way too costly, because, you know, having a Dalek float around the entirety of this episode would have been, I don't know how much money, but it's so expensive.
Yeah. They got they got to have some budget left over for sunglasses. They can't be wasting it on unimportant things.
But yeah, the special weapons Daleks goes through the tunnel and shoots two of the grey Daleks. And just to give some context behind the scenes of when they actually shot this, it was an Easter Monday, and it was the 60th anniversary of the uprising in Ireland, and the IRA was still obviously active around this time. And the two Daleks being exploded by the war machine caused a massive explosion. Apparently car alarms were going off for ages around the block. Dozens of people lived in flats down the street, and they began to rush out in a panic. Fire engines had to be rushed out to the scene. According to Andrew Morgan, which I don't quite believe, he says there was 10 ambulances and 16 fire engines, which slight embellishment, I think, on this story, but...
Yeah, but it was like 3 fire engines, but they like parked up next to a wall of mirrors, and so it looked like a lot. Like
the prime minister had to be rushed in to give a speech about it, to quell the fears of the nation. Every newspaper ran with a story saying there was a terrorist attack, and the entire country shut down for a while. I'm kidding.
It's one of those things that would never happen today, because we have much more regulation. Like, it's such an easy fix as well. Like, you just need to send out letters like a month or so before you start filming, letting people living nearby know that, hey, there's going to be some pyrotechnics going on nearby your house, so if you hear something big and loud, don't worry and don't panic. It's just us filming. And, more importantly, usually they just don't let off pyrotechnics in the middle of the street. Usually they reserve that for like a studio space, or they just CGI it.
Yeah.
There's very rare now that when someone's filming, they go to a publicly used bridge and go, all right, let's just fucking let's just let off drop some TNT, let's just blow this thing up and film it. And then if someone we'll just deal with whatever happens afterwards. At least we got the shot.
Speaking of, have you, this is totally off topic, but have you seen the most recent Mr. Beast video? It's insane.
I have never seen a single Mr. Beast video.
I really want to show you this video because it's insane how many things he fits into this one video. There's a train, right? And there's also a big pit, and he has a train go down the pit, and there's a massive explosion. He has tons of dynamite, TNT, and he explodes it all, and he builds a house, and he fills it with fireworks, and he sets the whole thing off. When I think of this episode and the pyrotechnicians, I kind of think of Mr. Beast in this situation where he's overly ambitious and the thing is massive, and it's like people who don't really have the experience of doing pyrotechnics, and they shouldn't really be doing it because anybody could be dead. But
oh yeah, it's an easy way to lose a hand.
But at the same time, it's really impressive. I like explosions. But yeah, Mr. Beast video is fucking insane, dude.
Interesting. There's nothing that appeals to me about Mr. Beast at all. So I've never bothered to sit and watch one of his videos.
I watch Mr. Beast more out of just fascination, just wondering how the fuck he gets his money, because 5 years ago, his shtick was he would sit in a room and count up to 10,000, and that was his whole shtick. I mean, all of a sudden he's got $3 million to spend on explosions and car bowling.
Yeah. Mr. Beast is one of those YouTubers that I dislike mainly for he is partly like quite a large partly responsible for the trend of glorifying wealth on YouTube. Like you know, like we spent X amount here, I gave X amount of money to this random person.
Yeah.
You know, where it's like, look at my big mansion, look how much money I've got, look how much, like, how cool and better I am. Why don't you want lots of money? You should have lots of money. Lots of money is the best. Which I think is just kind of gross as far as, like, ideas and things go. Mr. Beast seems like the least evil often, though. Like, you know, when you compare him to, like, Logan Paul and the other ones that have been glorifying wealth, like, Mr. Beast seems to be doing some decent charity stuff on top of it. But still, he's part of the problem.
Oh yeah, like that video where he cures blindness in like 1,000 people or whatever. That's insane, and that's. But again, he didn't need to film, but I feel like I don't know. I'm kind of mixed on it myself.
If you film it, it's a tax write-off. Like.
But yeah, at least he's
back.
trying to do some good compared to like a lot of our other YouTubers.
Yeah, like those Who Watches Who guys. Those guys are awful.
Oh yeah, we're millionaires as well, and we do nothing for money. It's shocking.
Yeah. But anyway, the episode continues as the Doctor decides he wants to be like Indiana Jones now, and he like flings over a piece of rope like a lasso and ties it up to create a zip line.
Yeah. Apparently, this was Sylvester McCoy's idea, and he was very disappointed that he wouldn't be allowed to actually do the stunt. Like I could just imagine Andrew Morgan being just shocked at the idea of letting a main actor do a stunt. Imagine if he died or something, you know? Like, I feel so bad for Christopher McQuarrie, who does the Mission Impossible movies. Like, just watching Tom Cruise almost die every fucking movie must be so scary.
But yeah, it's probably terrifying. But it's like, did you see the video with Matt Damon talking about Tom Cruise? And he was like, I was talking about Tom Cruise doing all the stunts that he does, and I was like, how did you like get someone to sign off on doing that? And he was like, I had this idea for a shot in my head for 25 years of me like scaling, like I think it was for like 4 or 5 when he's like going like up a building or whatever.
Ghost Protocol,
Yeah, and he's like, I had this shot for 25 years, and I was talking to our stunt producer about like how our stunt coordinator even about how we can do it, and he says to me that we just can't do it. It's impossible. There's no way we're doing this. It's so unsafe. And so I got a different stunt coordinator to, there's no stopping Tom Cruise. You just have to be like, okay, this is happening. We just have to try and do it as safe as possible.
Yeah, Tom Cruise on film set seems like the most insane person ever, but I'm sure off camera he's just completely normal, you know?
Oh yeah, famously a very normal guy, Tom Cruise. Very normal guy, famously. But the Doctor ziplines down into the alien ship into a very silly moment, I thought, where there's just a Dalek like piloting the ship that's like, oh wait, shit, I'm stuck, help, I can't get out my seat. And then the Doctor like murders him. I like that when the Doctor's murdering the Dalek, he like mimics the Dalek's voice going, no, robot-y.
Because the Dalek kind of shuts down and his speech gets slow. And also the Doctor is fiddling around with some Christmas lights that the Daleks apparently have. I'm not sure what these Christmas lights are or why.
I assume that they're the wires of the ship that were like, I didn't short-circuited them to electrocute the Dalek or something like that. But
Daleks famously love Christmas. Have you ever heard I want to spend my Christmas with a Dalek?
I've not, no.
I want to send you this video because speaking of Daleks and Christmas, it has to be brought up.
I bring you greetings from all Daleks. I'm gonna spend my Christmas with a Dalek and hug him underneath the mistletoe. And if he's very nice, I'll feed him sugar spice and hang a Christmas stocking from his big left toe.
Why is my main question. My other question is, did she say he had a big toe? Does the Dalek have big feet?
I'm not sure what the lyrics are.
New piece of Dalek lore. Also, like, why is she doing like the gross, like, dumb girl, like, voice thing? It makes me really uncomfortable.
Yeah, but this was a big single in 1964, just a year after the Daleks appeared. Some great stuff.
Dalek mania, man, but that's gross.
But yeah, the lyrics are, I'm gonna spend my Christmas with a Dalek and hug him underneath mistletoe. And if he's very nice, I'll feed him sugar spice and hang Christmas stocking from his big lead toe.
His big lead toe. So he's got feet. he's got like robot feet inside that container, not wheels. He's just little stompering around.
And when we both get up on Christmas morning, I'll kiss him on his chromium-plated head and take him in to say hi to Mum and frighten Daddy out of his bed.
Lovely. It's gross. It's really gross. The way she's singing reminds me of the episode of Community, the musical episode of
I know
Community,
exactly what you mean.
when Annie's trying to like convince Jeff, and she's putting on that dumb voice, like it's gross. It's gross.
Great episode,
but the episode itself continues as we cut back to Nazi guy, who's just kind of sitting there, and his guard's like, "Do you want a cup of tea?" And he's like, "Yeah." So the guy goes off to get a cup of tea, and he's like, "This is my moment to escape." And what I really liked here is when he like confronts his guard. His guard's like, "Come on, like just go, come on, don't do this. Just go sit back down. Come on, what are you doing? Don't
come
do
on,
this."
we have
like,
20 minutes left of this episode. We have to wrap up. We can't have you escaping and start a new subplot."
like just chill out, like just come on, like your punishment's not even going to be that bad, come on. But they get into a fight, and this guy, the Nazi guy that is, he beats up the guard, and he gives him the good old classic back smack, presumably killing him dead, because that's a fatal move, as we've learned. Then we cut back to inside the Dalek ship with the Doctor, and now everybody else has come and joined him, where they're looking
presumably they all used the zip line as well, just off screen.
I would imagine. Yeah, I would imagine so.
Would you take a zip line, or would you be terrified? I think I would be terrified.
I've done zip lining before.
So have I, but I was fucking terrified. Yeah. Screaming the entire time.
I thought it was quite fun. I quite enjoyed zip lining.
I have a fear of heights, ironically enough.
See, I'm not a huge fan of heights either, but like zipline didn't bother me. I don't know. I guess I just felt secure in the harness, but doing it without a harness, maybe a bit more spooky. But you know, when it's life or death and you're fighting Daleks, I feel like you're running more on adrenaline than anything else. So like you'd probably be able to do it. But they look at the Daleks' plans and they're like, oh, they've got plans to head back to their ancestral home. Let's go continue exploring through the ship, and they jump on down further into the ship as we cut off to Nazi guy who's like surrendering to the Grey Daleks, saying that he's got a message for them. These are the not good, or I mean, there's no good Daleks, but these are the other faction of the Daleks. Which ones are the genetically modified ones, and which ones are the original Daleks? I don't remember.
I don't remember myself. I think it's the white ones that was genetically altered because they were the ones that almost exterminated Ace last episode, or at the end of episode 2. And, you know, the Doctor looks inside and was like, oh, there's extra bits of blobbiness here. So I think it's the white ones that are genetically altered. Yeah.
But then we cut back off to the Doctor and everybody climbing out the ship, and the Doctor basically says, I've put in a listening in device to their communications, so we'll be able to spy on them and see what they're doing before we cut back.
The entire time he's trying to get his umbrella out of the door because it got stuck.
Yeah, it's stuck. It's very funny. As we cut back to the Nazi dude with his Nazi pal, and the creepy little girl that's also under the control of the Daleks for some reason. And they're like, why are we doing this? Should we do anything? Like, should we just run? Should we give up? Like, why are we helping out the Daleks right now? And this is when things get really, really silly, I think, because like everybody finds out that Nazi guy escaped, and we cut back to them, and they're like fucking. Like, the Daleks are like, let's just murder these dorks. We don't need these guys at all. As they try to steal the, like, time machine device. And then, like, the little girl suddenly has lightning powers. And, like, lightning powers the older Nazi guy. But, like, when she's doing that, she's, like, full-on corpsing the entire time. Like, she is trying so hard not to laugh. Because she's like, this is ridiculous. And she has to... Because obviously from her, she's, like, what, like 7, 8 years old? And she has to pretend to be like, bah! Yeah. And they're like, and, like, that's a ridiculous thing to do. So she's trying so hard not to laugh.
Yeah, she's doing her best.
Guy, like... The guy falls down on the stairs in the most ridiculous way, and like there's not a second that I believe he's actually dead. Like he is not a good acting as a corpse at all.
But yeah, I just thought of a thumbnail for the episode. It's little girl doing the lightning thing, but it's Palpatine. I'm not sure how you could do it, but just Palpatine as the little girl in a skirt.
Okay. I can try, I guess.
There's also a big explosion at the gates of this little area we're in. It's like a
huge explosion.
Yeah, and the gate was part of ITV's storage. This was owned by ITV, and the explosion was so massive it broke windows, completely destroyed the gate, and melted the 2 Daleks behind the gate. So again. God.
Who was in charge of rigging the explosions on this episode, and why did they want to murder everyone?
It was Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer was in charge of explosions.
Yeah. But the episode continues as we do transition quite nicely from that explosion because it like encapsulates the entire frame.
Yeah.
And then we transition into darkness where we've got the Doctor and that just rigging up. He's covered in Christmas lights again, but this is where we get actually pretty decent explanation about why the Daleks are fighting one another and the overall like message behind this episode, where Ace explains that the Daleks are fighting because one of the globs has been like altered into a different glob, and so they're like slightly different from the other globs, and those globs now don't like each other, and it's it's essentially like a race war is happening inside in the Daleks, and this plays into the larger themes of the episode that have been about racism and prejudice the entire time. And I think it was quite a good explanation. It's like on the nose without being too on the nose that you're like, oh, okay, I get what message you're trying to say. Like, I think they handle it quite well. And Ace's like way around of explaining it using like globs and globiness is very funny.
Yeah, Ace having to explain it simply for viewers is the best choice, because also Ace, I'm not saying Ace is simple, but she's human. She's not Time Lord. She can't explain it in the most complicated terms, so she's going to explain it as simply as possible, and it's the best choice for her. Because usually the companion is the person who asks all the questions, and the Doctor gives the exposition, but here Ace gets to give some exposition in a way. Obviously it's not needed exposition because we as viewers know what's going on. But, this is part 4, and maybe people didn't tune in the last 3 weeks of his story, so time to catch everybody up what's going on.
Yeah, it's pretty good. There's also another continuity problem in this episode, where the Doctor's like rigging up this machine, and the lady's like, how do you know how to rig up alien machinery, Doctor? And he's like, oh, it's really easy when you have 900 years experience. And like, excuse me, how old did you just say you were, Doctor?
Okay,
because
the thing so in Time in the Rani last season, he said he was 953. But saying he has 900 years of experience doing this doesn't mean that's his age, I have 2.5 years of experience of doing podcasts with you.
Exactly.
I'm not 2.5.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you have the mentality, sometimes, but even then, like, it implies the Doctor is older than 900 years, but that's still a continuity issue.
Oh, yeah.
If you look at like David Tennant's
Yeah.
Doctor and stuff like that, who was very adamant that he is 900, 901, 902. Like,
Oh, God, I get so annoyed with aging the Doctor in real time. It feels weird.
That's why I really liked when goddamn Moffat took over and he was like, oh yeah, the Doctor is now 1200, the Doctor is now 1400, the Doctor is now 2650. Like, it doesn't matter how old the Doctor is at all. Like,
Yeah, the thing is, it's being said in like continuity and like books and stuff. The Doctor simply cannot keep track anymore because he's a time traveler, and also there's so many adventures where he's gone through like mind loss, and we listened to that one audio drama with Christopher Eccleston where he gets turned into like a wooden statue, and he's inside of himself for like 100 years. So he's So does that mean Christopher Eccleston's Doctor survived 1,000 years? No, it fucking doesn't matter. Who cares? Like, and also if you include Peter Capaldi in was it Heaven Sent, when he's punching through the walls,
when he's
there for billions of
Daying,
years.
like,
So, it doesn't fucking matter.
It doesn't matter at all. It's very silly. But anyway, are we caught up now? I don't remember where we paused it.
No. Yes. No. Well, we basically just see the Daleks slowly wobbling away. They're moving at like 0.5 miles per hour.
They are, and they've got the hand of Omega as well. They're transporting the hand of Omega into their ship. Which the over the head shot of it looks really bad. Like, that's not aged well at all. Like, they didn't have any shadows or anything in it. But the shot of it going into the Dalek ship, that looks fucking great.
Yeah.
Like, it turns properly. It goes into the shadows. Like, it looks superb. Which, you know, just some effect shots get more time to work on than others, because just, you know, that's how things work, really. So the episode continues as everybody's kind of on the move and waiting for the Daleks to do something. The Daleks fly away and leave the planet Earth, and we get a very cool shot of them going back up into the like mothership. It's genuinely a really cool shot where they're silhouetted by this giant golden light of the like docking bay of the mothership, so you don't see the full scaled mothership, but you get a sense of just how big this thing is. I think it's really well done. It's really, really cool. It's such a fucking rad shot as well.
Yeah, the model work in classic Doctor Who is really solid as a whole, I reckon, because every time there's a model shot, I'm like, whoa, that's impressive, that's cool.
Yeah, and then, like, almost immediately, the Doctor starts his plan, which is, like, have a FaceTime call with the Emperor Dalek. Yeah. And, like, they start chatting back and forth, and the Emperor Dalek's like, oh, you're a Doctor, you've changed your face again. Well, guess what? It's me, Davros, da-da-da-da. And he, like, takes off his helmet, like the fucking dude from Spaceballs. You know, I don't remember the character's name, the big helmet, Darth Vader guy in Spaceballs.
Lord Helmet, I think his name is.
Yeah, yeah. Like, that, I get that vibe of Davros in this episode massively.
Terry Malloy, Terry Malloy, Davros himself, describes Davros as a kebab with a flip-top barbecue for a head. so the helmet is the barbecue lid, and his face is the kebab.
It's very silly. The Davros, this isn't the worst looking Davros. I don't think he looks that terrible. Like, he's got a very like plasticky looking skin, but he's like held together pretty well, and he's like covered in wires. His mouth is especially disgusting and black, which I think is a nice, like, very like good touch. The biggest issue I've got is his giant eyeball. Like, it lights up like a Dalek does when it's talking, but it's like isn't that your eyeball? Why is your eyeball lighting up?
I think that's I think we said that was when we did Genesis of the Daleks a few months ago. We said that was the original intent of Davros was to have the light lit up in his head, but because of the technology, there wasn't enough battery to really work the light, so we scrapped the idea. Davros wasn't even intended for this story, by the way. Ben Aronovich didn't want him to be in a story because he had been dominating every Dalek story since Genesis. So 14 years of Dalek story with just Davros at the center of it was a bit too much, so a break was needed. But then a member of the visual effects department suggested the reveal of the Emperor Dalek being Davros. And it's a nice reveal, but at the same time, it feels weird to have Davros so underused in the final Dalek story. I know it's
massively underused, especially what happens to him.
Yeah,
where he just runs away.
Obviously this wasn't intended to be the last Dalek story. If they didn't know the show would be cancelled next year, but it's really sad that the only interaction Davros and Sylvester McCoy have on screen together is used in a Discord call, basically. It's a shame. But this morning we just got the trailer for the next piece of Big Finish's 60th anniversary series, Once and Future, where it's Davros wanting Davros is a prisoner and he wants the Doctor to basically free him. So that's gonna be a fun story to listen to next in a few weeks. Actually, no, it's this month, maybe next. I'm not sure when it's coming out, but I'm looking forward to listening to that.
That was informative. Now I know exactly when to look out for it.
But it might be out today. I'm not sure.
But they have a good back and forth where basically Davros reveals that they want the Hand of Omega so that the Daleks can learn time travel and fuck everything up.
Mm-hmm. There was a line cut in this scene where it's again part of Cartmel's master plan, where Davros says, "In the end, you are just another Time Lord," and the Doctor replies with, "Oh Davros, I am far more than just another Time Lord," suggesting again the Doctor basically invented time travel, which is cool.
Yeah, that's a fun line. That he's got another great line where he's like, what do you want? Unlimited power, unlimited rice pudding, etc., etc. I think that's a really fun doctory line.
I'd be on board with the Daleks' plans if their plan was included with
unlimited rice pudding.
Yeah, I'd be on board.
But okay, this is a real test for you now. How do you eat your rice pudding?
What do you mean?
What do you have it cold? Do you heat it up? Do you add stuff to it? Well, if you're having rice pudding, how do you eat it?
I vary it, so there's no one answer for me, I'm afraid.
That's wrong. There is one right answer, and that right answer is cold with nothing else into it. You get the tin. You could eat it out the tin if you're feeling like you're not doing dishes, or you could put it into a bowl and just eat it as is. Don't heat it up. Don't add anything. It's perfect as it is. Rice pudding is fantastic. It's fantastic as it is.
Okay, fair.
As this is going on, we do cut back to Ace, who's back at the house she was staying at, where Nazi boyfriend is, and he's got putting a gun to her, and she's like, "Would you really shoot me?" And he's like, "Yeah, probably." But then, as the Doctor and Davros continue their back and forth, Davros is like, "We have the Hand of Omega, ha ha ha, let's send it back to Scarrow and have a really cool time and everyone will party." And then they send it back to Scarrow, and oh shit, it turns out that no one's partying, and the Doctor was ready for this, and now the sun has gone supernova, and Scarrow's getting destroyed, and they're all gonna die. And Davros is like, "Have pity on me, Doctor, please save my life." And the Doctor's like, I pity you, and I'm not gonna save your life. This is it. You're a pathetic person. And then it's a very, very funny. Davros closes his Dalek Emperor helmet, and then it's sped up footage, really quickly reverses out off the ship and gets into it, and you hear in the comms being like, "Oh, escape pod 1 has launched." So Davros escapes and lives, but him scuttling away as quick as possible is fucking hilarious. It's so silly.
It almost looks like YouTube poop. It reminds me of one.
It really does.
It reminds me of that one speech. It reminds me of one Twitter post I saw shortly after we did Genesis of the Daleks, where it's an edited scene from that episode where Davros enters the scene. He says, "I am nervous," And then it cuts to him leaving the room because he's so nervous to talk to people.
That's great.
But yeah,
I thought...
obviously... Sorry, you can go on if you want.
No, you can... I was just going to continue discussing what's
I have
happening.
a lot to say here. This is obviously Scarrow getting destroyed in this scene.
Yes.
Which is the first act of the Time War, according to Russell T Davies. This is the start of the Time War. He considers like Genesis of the Daleks to be like the kind of Cold War kind of thing to it, but this is the official start to the official war. Obviously, there's loads of continuity mistakes because Scarrow comes back in the TV movie where the Master gets executed on Scarrow. So what the fuck happened there? And obviously returns in Asylum of the Daleks and the Magician's Apprentice where Peter Capaldi is on Scarrow and shit. So
that's on he's in like a Scarrow in the past though, then, isn't he? Because that's when Davros is a kid.
Oh no, in that episode, Missy claims they built Scarrow again, so I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, they rebuilt, they recreate the entire planet.
Yeah, so there's a lot of weird continuity stuff with this. In an 8th Doctor book called The War of the Daleks, they give an explanation that Dalek Prime found out that Scarrow would be destroyed, but couldn't alter history, so they moved everything from Scarrow onto another planet 10 parsecs from Scarrow, so that Davros would believe it was Scarrow, which basically sounds like the meme from SpongeBob where Patrick Star says, "Oh, why don't we just push Bikini Bottom over here?"
Yeah. We take it, we put it somewhere else.
But yeah, weird continuity stuff. And another book claims the Daleks manipulated the timeline so that when Scarrow was destroyed, they rebuilt it immediately to erase the destruction of our home planet. Weird continuity stuff.
That is strange, yeah. That's really strange. But the episode continues?
Yeah, the episode continues.
Yeah, okay. This is what I thought was really strange. Because with Scarrow getting destroyed and Davros running away, that feels like the end of the episode. Like everything's tied up, we're sorted. But no. We have 5 solid minutes left of this episode as we cut back to Ace in the house. With her Nazi boyfriend guy, as there's a ringing at the doorbell, and he's like, fuck, I'll go answer this door, see who's there. Answers the door, it's a creepy little girl's there. She fucking lightning zaps him, and he goes flying into the stairs. And again, she's like on the verge of laughter. It is hilarious how goofy all the stuff with the little girl is. And she's like creeping about the house, and she like goes to confront Ace as the Doctor is going to confront what is seemingly the last Dalek on the planet. Like it just got everyone just left this one behind. Like all his mates left, and like no one told him that the war was over. And the Doctor tells everybody that they're like, this is like you're like talking to the Daleks specifically. He's like, you're gonna die. You're trapped. No one's here to save you. Like this is it. You're over. The Daleks are completely gone. Which causes this Dalek to freak out, and like as he's saying all this stuff, we're like cutting back and forth between the Dalek and the little girl, which I think is some nice mirror shots. Where it's like the Doctor's actually speaking to the possessed.
Speaking of
the girl
mirror shots, she literally destroys a mirror because she tries to kill Ace, but hits the mirror instead. We need
shatters the mirror.
We need a 7-season Big Finish series spin-off about this little girl and her bad luck, her 7 years of bad luck after this episode.
That's true. We do need that. But like then the Dalek starts like spinning really, 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 really fast, and like albeit like it's a pretty cool looking effect. Like I think it looks pretty rad. And as because they started manipulating the color as well, so things look a bit more like green and yellow. But as like that Dalek is spinning and freaking out, the little girl starts spinning and freaking out and screaming, and then like that Dalek like full on like explodes into dust, and the little girl just kind of breaks down crying, and Ace goes to comfort her, and the Doctor's like, aha, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, and he like blows the dust off his umbrella, which I thought was more like, I think you're trying too hard than cool.
So this scene, the confusing the Dalek came around because the original script had a subplot where the Doctor also got the finger of Omega, which he would use against the Black Dalek and destroy it. Some sources say that Sylvester cut it because he didn't like the Doctor being violent, which tracks from when he was supposed to have the rocket but gave it to Ace instead. And Andrew Morgan said he changed it because he didn't. Because the idea of talking a Dalek into self-destruction was more fun, which I'm not really sure how the scene I'm not sure how the scene makes sense because
I don't know why you need the scene at all, honestly.
Yeah.
But I guess it's there just to wrap up the spooky little girl storyline, which does need wrapping up.
But yeah, causing a Dalek to explode just by talking to it is a bit weird because the Dalek isn't a robot, you know. This is like a famous TV trope.
You can't logic trap a Dalek because it's an organic being. It's not an AI or a robot that runs purely off logic. Like it runs like the Daleks run off an emotion, and that emotion is hatred. If you've got a Dalek that's the last Dalek, it's gonna go, well, I'm the ultimate Dalek. Fuck everybody. I'm gonna kill everything. Like but like the episode continues anyway as they're at some like random funeral, I suppose, for one of the many people that died.
I think it's Mike's funeral.
Yeah,
and also
the Doctor.
There's some great shots of just Mike lying dead with his eyes open, which is
they're very funny,
grim.
Very funny
which is also very grim
funny.
because you don't often see eyes open when people die on screen.
Yeah, but the Doctor's like, well, let's just run away, Ace. Let's just leave. Like, let's ditch this funeral. It's a bummer. And Ace is like, did we do the right thing killing all those Daleks and stuff? And the Doctor's like, well, probably. We'll find out. And then the episode just kind of ends. The weird ending to this episode. And that is whatever this story was called. Remembrance, Resurgence, Remembrance of the Daleks, Genocide. No, just Remembrance of the Daleks. And I thought it was fun. I think it's a really fun episode of Doctor Who. It's a decent Sylvester McCoy episode. There's some fun. I like the themes that they present throughout the episode and the like overarching metaphors and stuff like that. I wasn't super sucked into it as far as stories go. I don't think it's my favorite Classic Who episode or Classic Who story that I've seen this year that we've covered. But I had a good time with it. There's some silly stuff. The little girl silly stuff really takes me out. Like that's like I'm full on laughing whenever she's electrocuting people like Palpatine. But besides that, it's a really solid story, I think.
Yeah, this must be like my 10th, 11th time watching this story because it's one of those classics I just keep coming back to, and every time I enjoy the hell out of it, and this time is no different. It's the first classic Doctor Who story I loved, so it's always got a special place for me. This time around, I really appreciate the metaphors more than I did as a kid, because obviously I'm an adult, basically. I'm mostly an adult.
I don't believe you.
But yeah, considering this episode was written by a 25-year-old, and this is his first ever TV job... It's impressive.
Yeah, it's insane. It's crazy.
You can tell that some things came to him later, like the reveal of Davros or the reveal of Little Girl as a twist, and some character revelations like that, and he couldn't quite figure out what he wanted to do. I think some plot elements are a bit muddled because I'm not 100% sure of what's going on in the story at all times. It gets kind of muddled, and character motivations sometimes don't make sense, but again, considering this is his first time writing television, it's understandable. They took a massive risk getting this guy to write the episode. 25 years old, no experience, and he wrote one of the episodes that's considered one of the best episodes of all time in the show. Impressive, and it really holds up. I've really enjoyed this episode, and I'm glad we chose, because I've been planning getting around to this episode since the podcast first started, but I needed a special occasion to do the episode in, so I'm glad it finally came, and I'm glad we watched Remembrance of the Daleks. Great performances, great writing, great direction, good fun time. I recommend it to anyone.
yeah, no, it's definitely worth watching. I definitely think it's worth watching. It was very enjoyable. But that is the end of this episode. Next week is the end of the month, so we will be looking at all the news. There's been a little bit of news, some reveals have been happening, but nothing too earth-shattering for us, like nothing that's getting us super excited. Some people are really fucking insanely excited about the really not important reveals, but we'll discuss all that next week with the news. And then after that, coming in August, it is time to start New Who.
Amazing.
As we are looking at Doctor Who chronologically this year. We have now finished Sylvester McCoy. We have covered Paul McGann's Doctor Who movie, which one day I feel like we should revisit.
Oh yeah,
but not anytime soon, because that was a almost 5-hour long podcast. So if you want to listen to that, I recommend going back and listening to it. It's like our 4th or 5th episode. It's a spectacular, extremely deep dive into that movie, which I adore, and I convinced Scott that it's very good as well.
He did.
But we are going to be starting with Bad Wolf come August time, so look forward to that. I certainly am looking forward to that. It's been so long since we covered New Who on the podcast. I mean, it's not been that long. We did Father's Day like a few weeks ago, but before that it's been ages. But so look forward to that, and until then, we will see you next time. I've got a heap of goodbyes to do. What am I doing? Follow us on Facebook at Who Watches Who. We're still on Twitter for some reason at Watches Doctor. We have a Threads page that I haven't done anything with, and we have an Instagram that we haven't done anything with. We're Watches.Doctor, I think, on there or something, or Who Watches.Who or something. I don't remember what our things are, but don't worry about that yet. We'll sort that out in a later date. You can find me on Threads at Reed Matthew. That's the only social media that I'm really public on at the minute.
We also have a new YouTube channel.
I do. Yeah, I have a new channel that I started with my friend Sean. It's called Psychedelic Gaming Hobos, where we are. It's essentially just ripping off Game Grumps. I figured there wasn't enough, white guys playing video games on YouTube, and so I was like, we need to add to that pile. It's a really unrepresented market. So I think it's been pretty fun so far. We've been playing through Sonic and the Stanley Parable, and also Amnesia are the first games that we're playing through, and they're interesting games. But that's Psychedelic Gaming Hobos. I recommend giving that a sub and a watch.
So do I.
For some pretty chill time. But other than that, I think I've covered everything extensively. We will see you next week. Bye. Same bat time, same bat channel. Bye.